fact, even if you scroll past it.
I've been doing a lot of scrolling on my phone lately, and I've been noticing a lot of people making just straight up false claims, or at least cherry picking the facts to make it sound like climate change isn't as bad as it really is. And these posts sometimes are getting thousands, if not millions, of views.
Everything you thought you knew about science of man-made global warming is virtually the opposite of what's real.
Man's contribution to CO2 in the atmosphere is only 0.01%.
I wouldn't see anything wrong with having twice as much CO2 as we presently have.
I report on climate change, so I know these claims aren't true, but it got me thinking, are people really buying into this?
Polls actually tell us most Canadians believe climate change is real.
When these polls do become viral and get shared with a larger population, most of the reactions are negative, and most of the comments are people trying to decredibleize or debunk what is being said.
Okay, so just because an online post is popular doesn't mean it's fooling everyone. But does that mean it's not doing any damage?
It is very easy by misleading rhetoric to induce doubt about those facts in the public, because the public doesn't have enough time, to sort of sift through all the information that's out there. So misinformation can have a very strong impact on people's attitudes.
Misinformation is all about planting little seeds of doubt. It might not be enough to actually make you think climate change isn't real, but it might make you question whether cutting emissions is really worth all the effort.
They tell us 97% of climate scientists agree, but they don't tell us that that's only 75 people.
Climate has always been changing, but this has nothing to do with man.
In a democracy, we want people to be informed about risks so that they can take educated decisions about how to avoid that. And if people are exposed to this blizzard of false information about climate change, then their right to be informed about risks is being undermined.
Let's break down a viral example.
In the 90s, it was the ozone layer will be destroyed in 10 years. In the 2000s, it was the glaciers will all melt in 10 years. None of this fear-mongering nonsense came true, but it did result in higher taxes.
This is one popular approach. It's sometimes called the anti-globalist conspiracy theory. Basically, it works by lumping together all sorts of different global crises and suggests that they're all basically inventions to try and control you.
But we know the glaciers are melting, thanks to decades of monitoring through photography, satellite imagery, and fieldwork. We also know that the thinning ozone was a real thing. The reason we don't talk about it much anymore, it's recovering.
The Montreal Protocol improves the odds in the risky game the world has been playing with its own future.
It's basically a good news story. We don't hear about it because humanity did the right things.
Susan Solomon's research helped reveal why the ozone was thinning. I asked her what it's like to hear people claim it wasn't real in the first place.
It's a little bit like saying, I had a heart attack and my doctor put a stent in and they told me I had to exercise. And now I feel great. So I think that was all just, nonsense to make money from the medical establishment.
A recent Canadian report calls it manufactured doubt. Misinformation can create a false sense that the science is still in question when it's not. Whether it's the link between CFCs and the ozone hole, smoking and lung cancer, or the fact that human activity does cause climate change.
There's plenty of research showing that exposure to misinformation about climate change leads people to take it less seriously and to be less willing to support policy actions and basically to say, we don't really have a problem.
He's talking about this body of evidence. Climate denial creates polarization, erodes trust in science, and undermines support for cutting emissions. It's gotten bad enough that the UN flagged misinformation as limiting climate action.
In other words, even if you don't fall down the rabbit hole, misinformation can still slow support for the work that's going to decide all of our futures.
Pass, smash.
We need to do more, like a lot more, in order for us to stick to our goal of limiting global heating to 1.5 degrees Celsius and to avoid fast-tracking the climate disaster. It's really no big deal. Right? Right?
So what's the solution? Well, you can check out questionable claims on websites like PolitiFact or Snopes as well, and you can double check whether the claims are legit or not. Well, you might be tempted to comment on videos like this one. It might not actually have the kind of effect you'd hope for.
Social media platforms tend to promote content that attracts a lot of interactions. So one way around, or one solution that I've seen some people use, is to share a picture of the post when debunking it rather than sharing the post itself.
Really, this is a problem that's bigger than you or me. It needs a big picture answer.
We asked social media companies, what are you doing about climate misinformation?
Twitter didn't respond, but Meta, TikTok, and YouTube all did. 2 videos we flagged to TikTok are no longer on the site.
All 3 companies told us they use a variety of tools. They'll sometimes label misinformation, they'll sometimes remove it from their platforms if it violates their policies, and they'll also sometimes actually shrink the audience that it can reach. Google told us that if YouTube videos outright promote climate change denial, they'll actually block those videos from getting ad revenue. But it's still an uphill battle.
We're living in an environment where outrage or anger or fear, anything that evokes attention or captures attention, is being favored by the algorithms of social media.
Beyond social media, there are other solutions, like making scientific research easier to access, avoiding overhyped news headlines, and calming down toxic partisan talk.
A lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax.
With the right combination of public support, good science, and practical solutions, there is hope that we can actually curb the impacts of climate change.
We have done it time and time and time again, and we're already starting to do it now with climate change. We need to get faster at it, but I'm convinced that we'll solve it, because I see people caring, I see people perceiving it, the change, and I see the practical solutions out there.
Since we first brought you Jayla's story, TikTok introduced a new climate misinformation policy. It says it's removing content that undermines established scientific consensus, but misleading climate information can still be found on the platform.